Investigators are looking for this arsonist who caught on fire while he was setting a car ablaze in Corona. It was caught on surveillance video. This is on Wakefield Avenue. You can see the man standing next to a black sedan before the flames suddenly erupt. Police say the fire destroyed the car and caused some damage to the home next to it. They believe the arsonist got away in a white pickup truck. If you have any...
Sometimes these, maybe Darwin Award, but you light yourself on fire.
When was the last time you saw Cal
doing that? It's absolutely, some of these criminals or suspected criminals are absolutely amazing. Next one up on the hit parade. Hopefully, here we go. Yes, this is a carjacker that's going to get dragged. There he is grabbing the car, tried to do that. Somebody drags him down the road in that. Can't be more justice going on than that. Speedboat does somersaults through the air at 200 miles per hour. We have two sets of videos. One as the boat's flying through the air, the other, the in-pilot video. Here we go. We thought. Thank you, Channel 7. For
boat trying to break a speed record in Arizona goes airborne, flipping and spinning before crashing back into the water. ABC's Janae Norman has more.
This morning, a heart-pounding scene on this Arizona lake. The two men inside this speedboat miraculously walking away with just minor injuries after they went airborne during a race on Lake Havasu Saturday, flipping and twisting multiple times in the sky before crashing down into the water. The 10,000 horsepower speedboat, known as America One, attempting to break a speed record while raising money for charity, topping 200 miles per hour before taking to the sky.
There was just gasps and screams.
Yes, gasps and screams. The other interesting video that we have for this is inside the cockpit of two gentlemen that were in said boat. As we said, here we go. See him getting close to 200 miles per hour, just hit that point. Then you see the boat going over. Oh, that there you see the actual in footage of that. Absolutely incredible. Guys in t-shirts, looks like shorts, doing 200 plus mile an hour in a boat. I don't know how they survive that. On top of that, no safety equipment, no fire equipment, doing that makes you wonder about some peeps out there. Three arrested in a deadly home invasion in SoCal.
Home invasion in Woodland Hills. The LAPD says the 47-year-old victim was found with a fatal head injury early Saturday on De La Osa Street. Investigators believe the suspects assaulted him, held him captive, and stole his belongings. The men were arrested later that day. They are aged 38 to 52, and this morning they face murder charges.
If they are, again, if they are convicted of this, the death penalty, in my view, would be way too light a punishment. Up in the high desert, a man plummets 100 feet off a cliff. Here's the Channel 5 report. as they're getting him here. Let's get that going.
Accident in the Cajon Pass yesterday. Crews responded to a spot about a half a mile off the road where the rider had gone 100 feet over the side. Rescue crews set up a rope rescue system to bring the rider back to safety and rush them to a trauma center with moderate injuries.
That's one lucky dude. Moderate injuries as a motorcyclist plummets 100 feet down off the side of a high desert mountain. Again, that's one fortunate dude on that. We will see what's up next on the hit parade. Yes, Canyon Lake cracking down on e-bikes. There's a speed limit, 28 miles an hour and certain restrictions, and it seems like a lot of people are not abiding by those, but Canyon Lake is cracking down on that. It was a gas leak in Rancho Cucamonga that people suffered many evacuations in that, but it seems like everything is back in order. Next one up, murder charges filed after 11 killed, dozen injured as the driver plows into a crowd in Vancouver.
Charges are now filed against the suspect in a deadly car ramming attack in Vancouver, Canada. He's identified as 30-year-old Kai G. Adam Lowe. The driver crashed into a crowd at a Filipino heritage festival last night, killing 11 people. They range in age from 5 to 65. Dozens of others were hurt. Bystanders held on to the suspect until police arrived, who say that he has a history of mental health issues.
A history of mental health issues. We got to get these chaps off the street. Maybe we'll talk about this when Kelly Victory comes on at 5:35. Harupa Valley had a deal where they arrested a dude for grand theft auto. Suka job, Harupa Valley cops. And that should do it for our first. We'll have a local one here in a second to run through some of the rest of the local news. But there's funky slide guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday, live at almost 5. Evil at B Network, Rumble, X. I don't know if X is still working. Maybe we'll have that tuned up today. YouTube, all those good things. Check us out, subscribe. We'll have some more local news coming up here in a bit. Of course, it's the weekend after Monday, and things were popping all around the local deal. Trump coming in with the I think it's a couple days. The first 100 days, that's always a landmark spot that people gauge the first 100 days because usually that's a lot of the things any president coming in accomplishes one way or the other. And that's kind of, everyone set that as a watermark per se. I think Trump's done absolutely fabulous in his first 100 days. They're trying to run, and a lot of the polling, CNN, PMSNBC, CBS, all those cats, we're trying, over the Sunday morning news shows, we're trying to run, Trump's approval rating is failing and coming down. Well, Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen Reports, who is the only polling firm I think that does a daily tracking of approval rating of the president, he has backed off a little bit. He was up 51, 52%. Now he's down about 47 on Rasmussen's deal. Not low 40s, early or high 30s, like some of the others. And it would be interesting to get through that. But Mark Mitchell had some very interesting observations of that when he was polling the actual policies of Donald J. Trump. Everybody's in support of his policies. And one of the biggest things that was completely opposite of what the other polls, who were basically off the charts wrong in the 2024 elections, because maybe we didn't have as much cheating as we usually did. Young people are backing Trump hard. Some of the statistics, and we may get into them later in the week, but there's some real different dynamics. One, for the first time in American history, younger people are more conservative, and the older you go, you're getting more liberal. So then blows the whole adage away that if you're not liberal by 20, you have no heart, and if you're not conservative by your time you're 40, you have no brains. And that was when you're 20s or something, either you're just first married or not too much or into that, and you're kind of figuring out you're either in college or just starting your working career and things like that. And as you go on in life, either have a family or start a business or working, and you see that paycheck and wondering why the hell all these deductions are coming out. So when you first get hired, I'm making, we're going to pay you $400 a week, and you get your check and it's like $280, and you're saying, huh? That's your first shock of reality. At least financially, most people get in their adult life. So this is the absolute trend, but they're still trying to come off on the trend of that. But a lot, Rich Barris, Mark Mitchell, Cahaley, a lot of those guys have really picked up on this in the 2024 election, and it was very key. Trump won way more. Young people, he increased his percentage tremendously over 2016 and 2020, even compared to 2024. He had tons more younger voters, and really lost that bracket between 65 and 75. Most of the boomers that were born in the 50s went really liberal. And especially, we have a class division in a couple of different categories. One of them is education. If you are holding a bachelor's degree, a BA, 4 years of college or more, whether you get a master's, which is usually 5 years, it's the next step up, and then doctorate, which usually takes you 7 or 8. Used to. Today, they're handing them out like cordwood. You get a cash register diploma now. But it's really 100% a class divide on that. And then there's the men and women divide. And that goes along this education thing too. But the age brackets that this pops back and forth on is really, really, really fascinating. And how we haven't seen, usually, like I said, it's been a consistent, younger voters liberal, and as each 10-year cycle, they got more conservative or voted center right. As they're from 18 to 29, there's very center left. By the time they get in their 40s, it's kind of even split. When you get to 60 and above, you're like way center right. That was tradition ever since they started polling, and probably people's inclination before that. You know, back in the 17, 18, early 1900s, there wasn't much polling going on down there, as old Senator Fritz Hollings would say. But that was probably more of that, and that's, like you said, that's where that saying came from. You know, if you're not liberal by 20, you have no heart. If you're not conservative by 40, you have no brains. But it's scattered. Maybe that's why our society is so scattered. Maybe it's part of the cell phone deal. Maybe it's, you know, technology. Maybe it's a lot of things. Maybe it's the dumbing down of education. Like I said, you get a PhD, you don't have to. Back then, whether you became a medical doctor or a physicist, or even if you had a degree in mathematics or teaching or engineering, I mean, a doctorate. And really, there wasn't that many courses or, let's say, degrees they handed out in doctorate. Again, and it was very rare, other than a medical doctor, that you went to a doctorate. Because usually, if you went to a BA or up to a master's degree, if you were an engineer or even a teacher or anything else like that that required CPA, business administration, you got up to that point, there were, in the old, let's say, or the former education system we had, it was really redundant to get a doctorate. I'd say way over, until about 20 years ago, 10, 20 years ago, practically all the doctorate degrees were actually medical doctors. That's why when you heard doctor, you figured, okay, you automatically assumed that. They didn't give out doctorates in rock climbing or whatever they're doing today. You know, oh, I vacationed in Europe for 8 years, got a $100,000 student loan, I got a doctorate in that. So that's some of the, let's say, societal changes and stuff. And it's happened fairly rapidly. I'm going to say in the last 10 to 15 years, I'm going to say like 2010 was the watermark. It was about the time the cell phone really started to take hold, and it was going to change your world. Your world was going to get bigger, and you could go to, you know, at the speed of light, you could be in Australia or talking to them or yada, yada, yada. And it's done almost 111% opposite. It's made everybody's world smaller. Now, all people's world are like this, because you just look around. You're sitting there at a restaurant, or you're standing in the checkout line, or you're actually seeing a medical doctor or a dentist or something. You're sitting in the office room or wherever. Look at the amount of people doing this. It's uncanny. It really is. So that's some of the, let's say, more interesting goodies we come up with. This one was kind of fun. The Arizona election for governor, which was quite contentious. Katie Hobbs versus, oh, how could I forget her name? Oh, who's the chick that ran that's now, I can remember that she's now head of Radio America. Anyway, it'll come to me. But I thought this was very, say, interesting. Katie Hobbs, Arizona agriculture employee, arrested for alleged human smuggling of illegal aliens. You get on the right track here so you can see this. Here we go. Katie Hobbs, who actually lobbied, and I think she did, took down part of the wall at the border in Arizona. Now, a Arizona agricultural employee is arrested for alleged human smuggling. Sometimes it doesn't get any better than this. But we're seeing tons of these stories come up. And all the stuff they called us crazy. Kari Lake. Gosh, how could I forget Kari Lake? Remember, well, when she ran for governor, and then, 3 or 4 months ago, ran for Senate. And that was one of Kari Lake's big issues, was containing illegal immigration. You know, she was for the border, big Trump supporter, MAGA. And Arizona, and I don't know what, I don't know if they've been Californiized or as California has, obviously, being a border state with Mexico, a lot of illegals coming in there, changing the dynamics of the election, and Maricopa County, which is what, 60% plus of the voting population. And that place has been corrupt as hell on the elections forever. I mean, especially the last 15 years. It's made a big change in the politics there. But these guys, like Newsom and all this, where's all these border governors? Well, you got really 3 with Mexico. You got California, you got gruesome Newsom, you got Katie Hobbs, then you got Greg Abbott down in Texas. Greg Abbott has, well, when he first started out as governor, he wasn't as red hot on building the wall and that. When the Biden invasion came in, he was like really on it to like the nth degree. So kudos to whoever was investigating this, and it might have been Tom Homan and his crew over there at Homeland Security, ICE, Kristi Noem, whoever found it. But I think you're going to find many, many, many more of these stories coming about. Speaking of said, the great Tom Homan, he had this to say at the press briefing today at the White House. We'll get to the illegal signs here in a second. Here we go.
I hear it all the time. There's a lot of people in this country who don't like me. I don't care. But when I walk through an airport, I have many people walking up to me and thank me for what I'm doing, and I'm not taking credit for anything. The success of the border and immigration enforcement is President Trump and the men and women wearing that uniform. God bless each and every one of them. But I take a pleasure in seeing it because in 40 years of doing this job, people always want to say, why are you so emotional when you testify? Why are you so emotional on network? Because if they wore my shoes for 40 years, they'd understand why I'm emotional.
Tom makes a great point on that. We will have in our local update we'll run here in a few minutes. Sabine Durden, we've had on the show many times, Angel Mom, was living in Moreno Valley. Her son was killed here by someone in this country illegally, came in, we deported him, came back. Agnes Gibney, I think she's up in Upland or Rancho. Ronald Da Silva, her son, was killed by an illegal in it, and it was like a random drive-by bullet shooting, whatever. He just happened to catch a bullet and killed him. And these stories, I understand exactly what I mean. Well, no, Tom Homan's been in this, like he said, for 40 years. But when you sit down and you speak like I've interviewed both Sabine and Agnes, and you just see, even though they talk about it, and when you're talking to them about this subject, you can just see the heart ripped out of those angel moms. You can see that their world has changed forever. The pain, the grief, you can just see it all over their face. So I understand what Tom Homan's talking about when he says this. And I don't know why and how heartless you have to be to walk away from this or walk away from that or try to defend gang members and talk about due process for people in this country illegally. Yeah, they have they have limited rights. They do not have the rights of a U.S. citizen more from the great Tom Homan.
I've talked to little girls as young as 9 years old that were raped multiple times by the cartel members. And then when you get to your knees and you talk to that little girl and everything innocent and pure has been ripped from her, when you listen to...
Again, how heartless do you have to be? Like he said, little girls as young as 9 years old raped, coming across the border or on their way up here. Little boys too. And then to be sex trafficked, labor trafficked, once they get here. And then you have like that jackass down there, that Superintendent Caravello down in LA. Oh, we're going to protect that. Oh, we don't want ICE or Homeland Security here checking out or making sure that kids we don't know nothing about, that the jackasses that goonball Harris and Biden let in here by the millions, we don't know who, 500,000 kids or more, we don't even know where they're at.
The Laken Riley, 17 minutes, that young lady fighting for her life. Don't just think, okay, a young woman died. Think of how she died, the terror that she went through, and these children are sexually assaulted.
Laken Riley, again, and more cases up and down that have been brutally raped, tortured, and then murdered. Again, it's extremely hard. Again, I don't know how heartless you have to be. The 10, 20, 25%. And not only seems to be in our population, but even more importantly, in our politicos, our representatives, who have more information than you and I have on this subject. More from Tom.
I stood in back of a tractor trailer and 19 dead people at my feet that baked to death. Illegal immigration is not a victimless crime. And so every sick person we take off the streets, especially child rapists, it makes this country much safer. Every illegal alien we arrest, public safety threat, one at a time, makes this country safer. I hear
every illegal alien we arrest makes this country safer. Tom Homan, the great Tom Homan. And he deserves at least as much credit as Donald J., Kristi Noem, all the ICE agents, Border Patrol agents. They're now actually doing the job that they signed on to do, the career they wanted, to make a difference. Not only for that paycheck, to be proud of what you do every day. And the Harris-Biden administration had them down to paper filler outers. To what was even the bigger irony of this, that they knew they were letting people, criminals, into this country illegally. Again, the morale that was just out of shape on that. And even more. And like I say, Trump, hands down, best troll artist president we've ever had. The signs you see there are on the White House lawn, as where if you see the reporters standing out on the White House lawn giving the report of, oh, Trump did this, or Biden did that, or Clinton, Monica Lewinsky, or however you do. This is where they stand. So I don't know what brilliant person at the Trump administration came up with this. So when they did their report, so they put these signs of all the ones arrested and the crimes they've been accused of. This whole row of signs, as you see, we posted on IE Newswire this morning. Write it, like I say, post pictures of illegals on the White House lawn at the press corps entrance. So if you see Jake Tapper or the nasty woman, Caitlin Collins, or whomever, giving their report, they were going to have to do it at the White House lawn. They were going to have to do it in front of those signs. You gotta love Donald J. He's absolutely fabulous on this stuff. Again, best all, whether you love him or hate him, best all-time troller president that we've ever had. Little preview of that, and this story broke this morning too. Bombshell new report reveals who made the fatal mistake that caused the Black Hawk to collide with the jet and kill 67. Of course, what was it, about a couple months ago? That helicopter, military helicopter that was doing a training flight down the Potomac, right there at the Washington, D.C., Virginia line, state line, right in there, where Ronald Reagan Airport is. That plane that was coming in, 67 or 64, whatever people were on that, coming in, just getting ready to land. Here's this helicopter coming in, and boom, 67 are dead. I think there were 3 in the helicopter, 64 on that, and they both fell, I think, into the Potomac River there. And remember the caterwauling of that, because soon was disclosed the head pilot was a woman, helicopter pilot. She's doing some training, had two other officers in there with her. According to this report that was released today and what it says in the Daily Mail, is the pilot ignored 15 seconds before the crash or thereabouts, ignored air traffic control that said, hey, you need to make a turn. Her instructor, that's what she was doing, was updating her credentials, so she had an instructor, was instructor flight. Her instructor said, hey, 5 to 10 seconds before you need to make a turn, we're going to hit this plane. Evidently, obviously, we've seen the results. She never made the turn, and 67 people are dead. Hopefully, Dwayne will be back tomorrow, and he's a pilot and airplane mechanic, so he has a lot of experience in the industry. So we'll dig deeper. I told him to study that new report that came out today. But remember when that all came about? Trump said it. When they came out about it and said, hey, we kind of know what's going on. And a lot of people said, hey, that was mostly the most likely scenario was a helicopter pilot error. And then everybody, oh, it was a woman pilot. She was the best out of her class. 111% better than any guy that was doing it. And that really doesn't make a lot of difference in a helicopter pilot. But the whole straight white male, the whole that, it couldn't be her. She's the experienced best out of her class, times 10. 2 months later, the latest report we have, she ignored 2 instructions, one from the air traffic controllers, second from those in her instructor saying, hey, make a, right turn, Clyde. Seen the old Clint Eastwood movie. So again, hopefully we'll get more in depth into that when hopefully Dwayne's in tomorrow. We'll get his take on it because he obviously knows a hell of a lot more about this stuff than I do. But that report, very damning information, and part of it coming across, it's just absolutely mind-boggling that we're in the situation we are, where we can't, what's sad about this is we just can't deal with things honestly. And that could, that's probably a lot of it. Everybody gets a trophy. Nobody ever makes a mistake. Genre we've been in. So another one, this was in the Banning Beaumont patch. California kills bill to more easily remove squatters and trespassers. Neighbors have complained of drugs, weapons, public nudity, and major fires by squatters. Center for Square of California news partner, Sacramento, California legislators quashed a bill that would have made it easier to remove squatters and trespassers from private property. Supporters said the bill would have made it easier for property owners to remove individuals who didn't have leases without having to go into lengthy civil proceedings, while opponents say it's already possible to remove trespassers and that it would worsen homelessness. Holy bejesus bleeping cow, as we say. We hear this. This is the big hue and cry we're hearing about the homeless and all this junk lately. Oh, if you take them, oh, if you remove the encampments, oh, if you remove the danger, that's not fixing it, it's making the problem worse. Well, yeah, it's making the problem worse for the dudes that have been ripping us off, charging us $1 million for 200 square foot hovels. And the whole just COVID, homeless con we've been going through the last 5 years, and even probably 20 years on this whole thing. We've got to get to a point. Some people are just a danger to not only to themselves, but to society. The humane thing to do is get them off the streets, get them into a facility or something. One, they're not terrorizing us. Our communities are much safer. Two, they are. When a rightful owner discovers that their property has been stolen by a trespasser, they dial 911, as most people in America would do. A police officer or sheriff's deputy shows up and says, "Sorry, we can't help you." California is one of the only states where this nightmare is happening. Assemblyman Carl DeMaio, Republican of San Diego, in committee, we literally have seen situations where police officer or sheriff's deputies advises the rightful property owner that they may be arrested for trespassing on their own property and for demanding that someone be removed. It's time to clarify in state law that squatters can be removed with due process. And it is. Someone can come up. Someone can come up and say, "Oh, I got this lease. Oh, we're going to get phony paperwork and everything else." And again, you, the property owner, are screwed. Rather than addressing the root causes of our state housing crisis, AB 897 would accelerate pathways for homelessness, said Housing California. Landlords and tenants currently have access to civil eviction process designed to address unauthorized occupancy. Assembly Bill 897 would have required trespassers or squatters to provide documentation of their legal entry into a property, such as a lease or proof of rental payments, within 3 days, or be subject to arrest. If the documentation is provided, a magistrate would hold a hearing within 7 days to determine whether the documentation is properly executed or materialist. But even 3 to 7 days, imagine the amount of damage someone could do to your rental property or someone's rental property in 3 to 7 days. And of course, should the magistrate find the documentation is improper or fraudulent, the individual will be removed and subject to liability for damages and back rent based on property and fair market value. The problem with that is 98.7% of the time, those who are squatting or you can't get them out or they're not paying their rent, they have no money. They have no assets to attach. So you, the property owner, or the insurance company who's insuring the property is eating $10,000, $100,000, $250,000, and that's not out of the question. Repairs to do this. It's why insurance rates, especially homeowners, are skyrocketing. Not only the fires, it's this issue. And to speed that process up in a week at the maximum, that's due process. Hey, where's your proof that you are leasing this house? Or you're renting it? Where's your documentation? Where are the payments you've been making? Where's the proof that you have this? 7 days. It should be 3 days. Period. You're in front of a court. If you can't prove in 3 days that you have a legal right to be on that property, gone and arrested. The fact that it could even get drawn out to 7 days is ridiculous. Like I said, how much damage? It can be 250,000 or 1,000 or more. How much did we pay of all the vagrants that destroyed the hotel rooms that we were putting him in? And all that other nonsense. It'll drive you completely insane of that. I don't know. It's crazy, really, of some of the things that we tolerate here. But be that as it may, it's updating you on more of the local news in the Inland Empire. And then when we come back, we'll join the Mighty Met KMET, and hopefully we'll have Dr. Kelly Victory on a Monday, as we usually do. Here we go. Hopefully. 2 teens crashed into a Riverside store by the 215 in Columbia after reports are that they stole a car or were in a stolen car from Corona. Again, one 17-year-old female and one 17-year-old male was there. There's some of the footage from Lone Wolf of that. You see the car crashed where it wound up. They're hitting a building there by the 215 in Columbia. Fatal crash on the Ortega Highway going from Lake Elsinore to OC. There you see some of the damage from the crash, courtesy of Red News. As we roll that off, let's see if we can roll this bigger. Yeah, you see the aforementioned car off on the side of the ditch. Again, fatal crash on the Ortega Highway, just west of Lake Elsinore. The Action Eye News, Hemet Eye News, Wall of Shame, Hemet Wall of Shame. Be on the lookout for our next episode of theirs. So there's Eddie George's good site on that with their very famous or infamous Wall of Shame. Brittany Force in Top Fuel, first driver to go over 340 miles an hour at 341 in the 1,000 feet. That is amazing, as you see the blast off into the deal, and you see it come up 341. There's another shot of it. It's a great accomplishment from Brittany Force. Oh, we did the fatal from there. Give us what's up next. protest at the Banning jail. Some of the people are not real happy about the inmates getting released out in the street, but imagine there's a little solution, but they've got to be released somewhere. But folks were concerned about the way the sheriff's department at Riverside County were doing that. Carjacking arrest. Inland Wire reports. Yeah, that was a wild one. A county car got carjacked in Colton. They found it in police found it in Fontana. So good job, cops, at getting that part eliminated. We just did that. Rancho Cucamonga deputies arrest a woman during traffic stop finding meth. Rancho C cops on the job. This is a sad one. Agnes Gibney, angel mom we've had on the show. 23 years ago, her son, Ronald De Silva, was shot and killed by an illegal alien. It's just tough to take, but I think he was 28 or 29 when he was gunned down by a errant bullet from, I think it was a gang war of that, but rest easy, Ronald De Silva. Horse Week comes to Norco, so get your tickets for that. That's a big deal. In Horsetown, USA, Norco, California. Sheriff Chad was on a deal, said it's illegal or legal to steal. Let's hear what he has to say in a second.
When people steal now, don't arrest them.
Well, no, we can always arrest them. We can always take them to jail. But in California, they've made everything a misdemeanor. And by making everything a misdemeanor and forcing all state prisoners into county jails, we don't have any place to house misdemeanors. So a dirty little secret in California is you don't go to jail for a misdemeanor. So all these misdemeanor crimes is just really a slap on the wrist and a free pass to just keep doing what you're doing.
Is that what it's like right this second?
Yes.
So if I drove down to California and walked into a store and snatched something and
Couple things. It has always been that way. When they said they couldn't arrest them over crimes under $950, that was false, untrue, if not an outright lie. It might have been the state didn't get that, but we'll get into that at a later time. Second thing, I hope Sheriff Chad, and I'm pretty sure he will, opens up the 1,200 bed jails, and the county supervisors at Riverside fund this in June. There has been no excuse. We have had bed space in Riverside County. 1,200 brand new beds at the Indio jail have been there, have been completed. Since 2019, they have only housed cockroaches. They've only used the first floor. The 400 per floor. 3 floors have never been used. We've only used the first floor. So we have had jail space in Riverside County also. That's a wrap for our second edition of that, of the local news. Hope you enjoyed it. So there's more of the update. There was so much I didn't want to stick it all in the interview or in the intro and have that. Same thing with Sheriff Chad. He needs to come up with it, and I hope they do. I'm pretty sure, pretty confident he will finally come up with a plan to open up the remaining 1,200 beds, 3 floors at the Indio jail that have remained empty since it was opened in 2019. They've only occupied the first floor, 400 beds. It's a 4-story building, obviously 1,600 total. They've only been able to house 400 prisoners or inmates. I guess you'd have to be state or federal to be considered a prisoner, for those of you who want to get technical on all this stuff. But It's time we got to that. And like I said, all that not that we didn't need 36 past, and they do need to be in felony, people who steal multiple times or commit multiple crimes, 3 strikes. And again, there was a couple tweaks that needed to be made with 3 strikes, but when 3 strikes was passed and it was enforced, we had a much safer community. California got safer real quick. A lot of things got haywired out on on that whole deal, and we really need to rein that back in. But we were sold a bill of goods. They could have been arrested. When they said, oh, we can't arrest them for not stealing less than 950, yes, they could. They could have prosecuted them, could have put them in jail. Probably 1.5 years max, I think, is the max you can get on a misdemeanor, but still. And to claim in Riverside County we didn't have jail space or bed space, we did. For whatever reason, county board of supervisors, county sheriff decided we didn't need to do that. And that question, staffing I get, but that is not, I'm not 100% buying that. There could have been, well, all of a sudden now, what was the big thing that changed? Now you got staffing. That needs some explanation. It was turned around just like that. A lot of things are fun when you enter the political world, as they say. But we shall see. We'll be joining the Mighty Met KMET here in a few seconds. We'll be coming back with Dr. Kelly Victory to discuss maybe that or some other topics I've got on the table for the great doctor, as I think Sean's coming in.
We got about 1 minute, Roy.
Good.
Sounds like your mics are working.
Thank goodness. Sounds like the radio station's working too.
Yes, thanks goodness. Knock on wood.
for those of you, it's like a battle every day when you come in here and mess with these electronics. That's inside joke, inside baseball on the world that brings you all this stuff. It's
30 seconds.
It's quite challenging at times to pull it on off. It probably isn't, but it seems like there isn't a day that there isn't some sort of issue. So.
Oh, it is challenging.
Of that, I mean, it probably is, but I mean, it's always like when you're flipping the switch.
Here we go, 10 seconds.
Everything ready to go. It's like PatriotSwitch.com.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky live guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday, live at 5:30 in the Mighty Met, 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire on the aforementioned AM band, joining our vast video audience in the Evil FB network, Rumble, X, YouTube. I don't know, X might not be working, but maybe we'll have that fixed. Today we shall see lots of stuff going on. Trump world, getting close to the 100 days. The great Tom Homan had addressed at the White House today. Not only did they have all the signs in front of the press corps, pushing all the stuff in of the illegals that were arrested, but he gave a great update on why he gets so passionate, emotional about all this stuff coming aboard on that, why he works so hard. And even though he said, Mr. Homan said, I don't take the credit, it goes to Donald J. Trump or all the Border Patrol and ICE, and that is certainly true. But if you don't have a guy with the passion and the spirit like Tom Homan leading the charge, it's not going to happen. And we should be thanking our lucky stars every day that he's on the job. Lots of other things going on. But as we usually do on a Monday, we have, as I've determined her, the premier physician in all the world, supreme expert on COVID-19 and just about everything else, Dr. Kelly Victory. Welcome to iNewsWire with Roy.
Hey, Roy, happy Monday. And I have to say, I was just listening to your talking about Tom Homan, and I have to weigh in. Talk about a gem. He is an absolute gem in this administration. And I agree with you. We need to thank God that we have Tom Homan at the helm doing what he's doing with immigration under the tutelage and direction of President Trump. This is a great thing for America.
1,000%, as we said earlier, but and yesterday, Ronald De Silva, 23 years ago, was gunned down by an illegal alien. He was like a drive-by shooting, and he just happened to catch the bullet and killed him. His mom, Agnes Gibney, which we've had in here many times, and same with Sabine Durden. Her son was working here. Used to work in back in the broadcast room where we did the city council meetings, and was working for the sheriff's department. Wanted to become a helicopter pilot. Was hit and killed by someone who'd been deported here in Moreno Valley. And to look in those, when you're interviewing them and knowing they're trying to get the story out and that, doing the yeoman's work of, and I know the pain, but you can just see the heartbreak and pain. Even though they're telling the story, you can see the life going out of their eyes when they're talking about this stuff. And that's why I say, hope if Tom Homan prevents even one, like they say, even one mom that doesn't have to go through this, or one family doesn't have to lose a Laken Riley or Kate Steinle or whatever, it would all be worth it, Dr. Kelly.
No, I agree with you. And when I listen to, what's going on with the Democrats going down and advocating to bring back some MS-13 gangbanger back to the United States because, they lacked due process, honestly, you want to say, what are you thinking? How many more Americans do you want to suffer at the hands of these people? How many more people do you want to lose a child, a spouse, whatever, to one of these people? I can't even imagine. My heart goes out to the people. Can you imagine truly having lost a child to an illegal alien and then have the Democrats acting in this way? It's really remarkable. And I will tell you, when somebody says to me, yeah, but, Dr. Kelly, we have, rule of law and all of that, due process. Okay, well, where was due process for the J6ers? Where was due process for the Americans who actually, you don't see any of the Democrats fighting for due process when it comes to actual Americans. It's only when it comes to illegal aliens. So I will tell you, I think what Tom Homan is doing, what President Trump is doing, it is directionally correct. I'm not suggesting that anyone break the rule of law, but I'm saying we have got to start applying some modicum of common sense here.
1,000%. If we don't, I guess I would say we're doomed, as I would say on part of that. But one of the great things that Trump did, and I thought was absolutely fabulous, as picking up on the subject, moving, he put up signs all across the White House lawn where the press corps comes in, and where if you hear whoever, Jake Tapper, the nasty woman or something doing the report out there, signs of all the ones arrested, illegals arrested, and the crimes they had. So if they had to do their report today, or I hope they keep them up there forever, but this was an absolute, we got them up on the screen, absolute brilliant. Trump, best trolling PR, knows how to get an issue out, president by far, even with this important issue, and I'm not making light of that. But This is how you galvanize or get 60, 70, 80% plus on some of these issues, Dr. Kelly.
No, I agree. And I think that the average American understands that this is directionally correct. Even people who have been lifelong Democrats, who have been lifelong supporters of the Democrat Party, understand that it's not a winner, number one, to have open borders, Roy. It's not a winner to talk about bringing hardened criminals back here, or to aid and abet them, to have sanctuary cities. Thank you, Jesus. Caroline Leavitt came out and made it clear that President Trump intends to wage war against these sanctuary states, sanctuary cities. We are not going to put up with it anymore. We have got to retake this country. Honestly, we are at 100 days now in this new administration, and I have to say, with the things that Elon Musk and Doge have done, with the things that Trump himself has done, with the things that, we're seeing with immigration, with Tom Homan, with the things that are happening in the Department of Education. There's so much to be grateful for. You don't have to like Donald Trump. You don't have to like the way he speaks. You don't have to, think that he's the guy you want to have dinner with. But I will tell you right now, every single one of his departments is on the right track. We are going the right direction. And in 100 days, we have made more positive movement, I think, than we did in the entire 4 years of the Biden administration.
1,000%. The other issue that broke during this weekend was actually in Canada, but if we don't get our act together over here, it's going to be the same thing, as they say, in this neck of the woods. Up in Vancouver, they're saying a known man, mentally disturbed, drives his car, plows into a crowd of people, kills 11 people. And along the same lines, people, we hear the due process and all this, and you can't do something for somebody. Here, I believe it's 110, not only for the safety issue, which is a separate deal. It is inhumane as a society to have people who can't take care or deal with society themselves, to just let them turn them loose or let them wander around and do these sort of things, up to the heinous crimes or disasters or like that just happened up there, but just in our daily lives, the vagrant camps and everything else. This is how this stuff happens. And if you don't have the mental capacity to take care of yourself, whether you burnt your brains out on drugs or whatever, you either need to be in some sort of facility, jail, mental health institution. I'm not so much as, and I'm not the expert to determine exactly which one it is, but if we really were truly a caring and humane society, we would have been doing like we did this decades ago, Dr. Kelly.
No, you're exactly right. And this happened during the 70s, Roy, during the deinstitutionalization. We ended up opening up facilities where people had been housed, people who were deemed incompetent to care for themselves. And we decided, no, we'll just let people be on their own. It's unfair, it's inhumane to institutionalize them. So we ended up opening up facilities and putting onto the streets people who are either mentally, physically, emotionally, or because of addiction, incapable of caring for themselves. You add on top of that the massive increases that we are having in issues related to autism spectrum disorder, which are up exponentially, and we now have an entire generation of people who are incapable of caring for themselves, who are not emotionally stable enough to do well without intervention. So now you've got homeless people all over the place. You've got people, just watch your average, quote, protest. These people are unhinged. They're not unhinged, Roy, just because they're liberals. They're unhinged because they are not right mentally. They are people who are either on the autism spectrum disorder or they have other mental health issues that are making them these just rabid individuals who are screaming, who are burning things, torching things, assaulting others, pushing people onto train tracks, punching people, doing things that are otherwise. We never saw this type of violence. We never saw this type of behavior ever before in the past. This is not just, a singular issue. It is both the fact that we deinstitutionalized people who needed additional help or who should have been in a controlled environment, and add on top of that the massive, and I mean massive, increase in neuropsychiatric conditions, otherwise known as autism spectrum disorder.
Something as you were talking that pops in my head of that, especially with autism becoming just vastly more prevalent in our society. I think it's like in California, it's like 1 in 20 kids now are diagnosed with that. What happens in future years now is coming when the parents, are dead and gone or whatever, or incapable of taking care of these kids like they are now, or like they're doing when they get in their 20s, 30s, or 40s, and then the parents don't become able to take care of them, or they're looking at the roots of the grass and things like that. That's part of the cycle of life. What's going to happen to these kids or when they become young adults, older adults, and there's no family support to take care of them, Dr. Kelly?
Yeah, good question, Roy. This is a huge issue. You are hitting the nail on. You are really exposing one of the biggest issues. What will happen? We are talking in the state of California, it's 1 in 20 kids and 1 in 12 boys. 1 in 12 males, 4-year-old males in California, have been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, autism or something associated with autism. 1 in 12. Think of that. So you're right. What happens when the parents, who are now in their 30s, or perhaps 40, what happens when they die, when they can't take care of these kids? These are children, as Robert Kennedy Jr. said so passionately in a recent address. These are kids, many of whom, at least 25% of whom, 25% of kids with autism have severe autism disorder, meaning they will never work, they will never live independently, they cannot feed themselves, they will never use a bathroom unassisted. These are kids who are going to require long-term chronic care. And what happens when the parents can't deal with that? These are not kids, we can't simply institutionalize all of them. So no one is addressing this. And so whether you agree with Bobby Kennedy and what he's doing, whether you agree with his association of autism and vaccines, the bottom line is we have got to address this tsunami of autistic disease that we are seeing and figure out how to stop it, because there is no off-ramp here. There's no way that we can sustain ourselves as a society in another 30 years with this percentage of the population that is going to require long-term care.
This is the failure. I'll take you back a little over 20 years ago, 2004, California, we passed Prop 63, as I call it, the Tax the Rich White Boys Act. Newsom was just had been elected mayor, and the powers to be able to, we're going to wipe out homeless, that was the end of the Gray Davis deal as just governor. We're going to wipe out homelessness and this mental illness. In 5 years, you do this, tens of billions of dollars just on that one deal have been spent. This is the irony of that. If we had had this process in place for those who are mentally ill, vagrants, whatever, burnt their brains out on drugs, and we had put that together like was promised, then there would be that infrastructure in there. For whatever reason, the autism epidemic is happening, we would have the infrastructure in place to transition or have the experience of how to deal with this. We frittered that money away, and we've done this, and now we're dealing, now on top of the vagrancy thing and the drug burnout deal and all the other stuff, now we're looking at this another 10 or 15, 20 years down the road becoming a real problem. And we haven't done anything as a society, as a great American society, or as caring as the liberals, or whatever. We haven't done anything to prepare or address the root problems, Dr. Kelly.
No, and so it really, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, Roy, but it really begs the question. if you wanted to totally degrade, to undermine, and to tank our great society, what would you do? And I would submit to you, you do exactly what they have done, what the elites have done. You would allow the people who are mentally disabled, incapable of caring for themselves, to be out on the street. You would do those things that promoted neuropsychiatric illness, including autism spectrum disorder. You would allow people to have free access to drugs. You would allow people to behave in the way that they have, because now here we find ourselves in 2025, and I'm not sure it's actually recoverable, because the last generation of people who had very, very low rates of autism, low rates of psychiatric illness, is our generation, Roy. And I hate to tell you, but we're on the conveyor belt out
Yes.
of here.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm not sure you and I have enough longevity to be able to see this, to conclusion. So we have got to turn this around. And so when I hear a Bobby Kennedy, and you know that he and I are friends and colleagues, when you talk about the people who are wedded to finding the cure for this, to finding the cause for this, to say, we have got to stop. We have got to make America healthy again, because otherwise our entire civilization is going to tank. It's going to fall at the knees of ill health, of disease, of neuropsychiatric disorder, and because we're essentially going to implode for lack of an ability to care for ourselves. Meanwhile, other societies, including China, they're going to take over because they are not suffering from this. You are not seeing rates of autism, for example, and no one ever reports on this. Does anybody wonder why you don't see the rates of autism in China that you see here in the United States? Could it be because they're not eating the crap we are eating? Could it be because they don't vaccinate people every 15 minutes after they get out of the womb? Could it be that they're doing something different that is allowing them to have not only the health advantage, but the geopolitical advantage?
I usually only run it like a couple minutes, but it got about 3 or 4 minutes on there. Is there anything else on the radar screen you want to let our audience know about?
No, but I'll tell you, as I said, great things happening in Washington from my perspective. What Bobby Kennedy and HHS are doing with regard to eliminating these petroleum-based additives to foods, whether it's food dyes, food flavorings, artificial preservatives that are petroleum-based. All these years I knew that artificial additives were bad for you. I didn't even realize as a doctor that they were petroleum-based products. Who wants their kid eating, but your Skittles and your M&Ms and your, colorful drinks are actually petroleum-based dyes. How disgusting is that? No wonder we're all sick. So I think that there are really good things happening, and I'm hoping that people will continue to support the work that Bobby Kennedy Jr. and HHS are doing. There's a lot more to do, but we're on the right track.
It is. I did it about, 20, 30 years ago or so. Pretty much eliminated all the processed foods and that. And the change, and I can notice it if I go to a restaurant now or something, I can notice the effects it has on my body, or you eat some of that at a party or whatever, or somebody has you that. It has a profound, if you purge your system of that and it's not used to it and you introduce it to that, again, you will, if your body hasn't been, immune to that or been set up to process that stuff, man, it has a real profound, I can tell you from anecdotally, it has a profound effect on you, and usually not in a good way. We got about a minute left.
No, I agree with you. And I'll tell you, I think for many Americans, certainly for me, one of the most addictive things out there is sugar by itself. there's no question that big ag, big food, we normally sit here and diss on big pharma, and God only knows I have no love lost for the pharmaceutical industry, but big ag and big food are just as culpable here. It was years ago, back in the 60s, the sugar industry paid off the FDA to say that it was fats that caused people to have heart disease. It was fat and cholesterol were the problems, when in fact it was really likely sugar. Sugar is highly, highly addictive, and I think for many Americans, myself included, I really struggled with getting off of the sugar. I went cold turkey a year or so ago and said, absolutely no, I'm not going to include any added sugar in my diet, and it's made a profound impact on my overall sense of well-being, my health, my inflammation, everything associated with poor health. And I think that that's the single thing that people can really focus on is eliminating or decreasing the amount of sugar that you add to your diet. Read the labels, start to understand how much added sugar there is in simple things that you wouldn't expect: bread, hamburger buns, pasta sauce, those sorts of things, and go for those brands that include less or have no added sugar. You will do yourself a world of good.
Good advice from the great doctor. We'll do this again soon, Dr. Kelly.
Sounds great. Thanks, Roy.
You got it. Dr. Kelly Victory saying it only as she can. And I will say that, it does. You get off the processed foods, and the processed table sugar will make a humongous, or I will bet, you can't predict, I'm no medical doctor, anybody I've known that has done it has almost to a T said exactly what Dr. Kelly said. So take that for what it's worth. And hopefully, as Robert, make America healthy again. Maha. That could be even more important. I'm not saying it is, than make America great again, like Donald J. Trump, which is a subset of his deal. Anyway, as you know, I've been talking about standing up for our country, doing something. These big box stores stayed open while the little guys closed. Will our voices be heard? Does voting with our dollars work? PatriotSwitch.com gives patriots the power to walk away from the big box stores forever. Stop supporting the enemies of freedom now. That's why PatriotSwitch.com was created, for those who support America. PatriotSwitch.com. Is your car doing the hucklebuck and afraid you will be stuck? Well, head on down to Toyota of San Bernardino, Nissan of San Bernardino, Subaru of San Bernardino, and the San Bernardino Auto Mall, and catch a Camry, look ravishing in a Rogue, or be styling in a Subaru. Don't forget I-10 Toyota and Indio for those of you in the lower desert. You deserve to be the happiest human on the planet. So head on down to one of these 4 great dealerships for the car of your dreams. Spread the word. IE Newswire is now on every Monday through Friday, live at 5 p.m. on Rumble and KMET 1490 AM, 5:30 to 6 p.m. Join all the cool kids who want an eclectic look at the news without all the filters of the evil scoundrels of social media and the despicable dorks of the dominant press. Don't bumble and stumble. Subscribe to IE Newswire on Rumble and roll with the best hillbilly hoedown around. That's it. If you want to buy American, go to PatriotSwitch.com. If you need a new Subaru or Toyota, get on a Cliff Cummings. Great dealerships at San Bernardino Auto Mall at the 10 and 215 freeways. Don't forget I-10 Toyota down in the lower desert. Man, of course, it's a wild and woolly weekend coming in on Monday. You got to get everything in, and all the crashes and dudes lighting themselves on fire, trying to light their car on fire. The motorcycles. 100 feet down up there in the high desert and only suffered moderate injuries. 2, the speedboat doing 200 mile an hour, and those guys lifted off like a rocket, come crashing back down. And they were just in T-shirts and shorts that looked like doing this. And they didn't seem to be worse for the wear. That's Man, you think it's hitting the water? Sometimes hitting the water when you're coming down like that at speed is worse than you actually hitting the ground because it kind of grabs you and stops. And that's even more dangerous or unhealthy and sometimes even more fatal than bouncing off the ground and hitting. So those guys were lucky as heck too for all the good stuff. And we had Dr. Kelly on, as we usually do on a Monday. But as we usually say at this time, mandatory, you're back here in 23 hours. Why? You're the best darn show in the whole wide world. Until then, see ya.
The proceeding.
All right, Roy. Well, I will talk to you tomorrow.
You got it.
Bye now.